this ancient practice of gratitude is more important today than anything. I loved this picture when I found it when I was writing my blog this week and writing this talk. It's because it separates the word Thanksgiving, right? Happy Thanksgiving, right? Because it's about giving. It's like, what am I giving to this day? What am I giving to this community? What am I giving to the world, right? And we can give so many different things. And Thanksgiving for us this year, I feel, couldn't come soon enough, right? Couldn't get here quick enough, and it is now our job to hold it, right? To keep it present of mind, keep it in our hearts, and to be grateful daily as a spiritual practice, not just one day of the year, not just one weekend of the year, but as our mission, right? Things happen all the time. All the time things happen. But what's most important is what happens in you, right? How you meet the terrain, how you meet the things that are coming at you with gratitude, with opening. You know, this day was actually, Thanksgiving Day, was actually designed for people who were living in very turbulent times like we're living in now. But it's much harder to be grateful when your team isn't winning, when your belly isn't full, when things aren't going like you think they should go. But there's a scriptural quote, a spiritual practice that I always have loved. And it says, rejoice always, pray continually, and give thanks in all circumstances. In all circumstances, give thanks. Now, you may say, well, you know, it's really hard to give thanks, Ken. I mean, there's people, homeless people right out there in the street. There's people who are hungry. If you read the paper, the war in Yemen is just unbelievable. The violence and the hatred in our communities, in our nation, in the world. Why would we give thanks for that? And the quote doesn't say to give thanks for it. The quote says to give thanks in it. In the midst of it, it says to give thanks in all circumstances, not for them. It's not pretending that the circumstances don't exist, that there are people who are hungry, there are people who don't have a roof over their heads. There are people who are in dire straits. But we give thanks in the midst of that battle, in that situation, in that struggle, to transform it. You know, it's not about denying the facts. This is not a psychological denial, but a way to be bigger than the circumstance. It's what do you bring to it? Do you bring your light to this circumstance? Do you bring your wholeness to the circumstance so that it can change? There's always a struggle, whether it be when you're a kid and having to face the exams or school, or the struggles of peer pressure. Like we don't have that as adults, right? But no, never. Or when you get to be a parent, and when you get to be an elder, and when you get to be a leader, all the different voices telling you how it should be, how you should do it, what is right, what's wrong, and you have to hold to your course. You have to be, as someone mentioned to me earlier, authentic. Your light has a frequency that is different than everyone else's light. And that's why it's so beautiful. Your light is unique and special, and there's never been another you on the planet. Get that? There's never been another you. Of the billions on this planet, there's never been you. There's never been you. Never been you. So why are you hiding it? Why are you hiding it? It is an amazing, unique gift to be grateful for, and the world needs it. And even in the midst of these, St. Paul tells us again in Romans, do not conform to the pattern of this world. Don't make yourself into the mold of everyone else. Don't pretend that what is going on in our politics is right or normal. Don't pretend that how we let people suffer and die on this planet is good. It's not. But be transformed by how you step into the battle. You will never, as Einstein reminded us, solve a problem at the level of consciousness with which it was created. So if we go to solve war in a battle stance, in an anger, in a warrior posture, what are we going to get? War. That's why the teachings of Jesus were about peace. We're about love. We're about transcendence, about overcoming the world, breaking through to a new paradigm, a new understanding. And Thanksgiving was like that for us too. You know, all the pilgrim references are true. There were 53 pilgrims and 90 or so Native Americans who all came together for that first Thanksgiving meal. But there's some things about it that you may not really understand, because the Thanksgiving that we celebrate today wasn't continually celebrated since this occurrence in 1621, I believe it was. But it didn't actually take place again. We didn't have another Thanksgiving until 1789, when George Washington made a proclamation that we should celebrate Thanksgiving, right? And he said that we should be grateful for what we have. Look at where we are. Look at where we've started. The fact that we're alive, that we're one nation, one people, is a miracle. In 1789, the country was in famine. There were people dying all over. They had won independence from Britain. We were celebrating, but people were unhappy. And he instituted Thanksgiving in the midst of the turmoil, in the midst of the pain, in the midst of the suffering. He said we should be grateful, and made a national proclamation that we celebrate in metaphor the pilgrims and the Indians coming together, seeming enemies, seeming opposites, seeming nothing in common, to come together and celebrate the abundance that is our lives, that is the truth of who we are. You know, the pilgrims are a reminder that today is a gift from everyone who went before us, what they suffered, what they endured, what they overcame, so that we can live in this space, in this time, in this country, and enjoy the bounty. Was it fun or easy for them? Hardly. But it's a gift, and sometimes we don't honor it. We don't honor the gift of God, the gift of where we are, where we started from, and where we are now. Gratitude, thanksgiving, is a way to reset that, to look at it differently, to look at the reality of what's going in the world and to see it anew, to see it wholly, completely. But unfortunately, after George Washington did this amazing spiritual recognition of the power of gratitude, it fell by the wayside. The national holiday of Thanksgiving wasn't widely practiced at that time. It was here or there. States practiced it at different times, October, November, but there wasn't a national holiday until the Civil War. And in the midst of writing the Emancipation Proclamation, Abraham Lincoln decided that it should be a national holiday. And he spoke of it in such incredible terms. He spoke of it not as the southern states and the northern states. He spoke of it not as us or them, the blue or the gray. He spoke of it as one nation, one people, that we're coming together to celebrate what we have been given, this nation under God, this one place, this wholeness that we call the United States. Right? He knew that one side or the other was going to win. And that if we continually talk about them and how they have it wrong and how evil they are, that when the war was over, all will be left is pieces. All that will be left is brokenness. Sound familiar? What we do today? He didn't speak to half of the nation. He didn't speak to the people who voted for him. He spoke to everyone and said, we are one, we are blessed, and we give thanks on this day. The wholeness. But once again, it was not to last. But before I go on, there is a great little aside here. You know, Lincoln didn't come to this idea himself. It was actually brought on by another person. Do you know who it was? It was a woman. And her name was Sarah Josepha Hale. All right? You may not know who she is, but she wrote the nursery rhyme, Mary Had a Little Lamb. Right? But she was also an extremely well-educated woman, which was unusual at the time. She was a school teacher. Her parents believed in equal education of the sexes, of the genders. Good for them. And she wrote to every president she could, saying that it was important that we establish a national holiday of Thanksgiving, a national day where we all come together. And president after president ignored her until Lincoln recognized the genius of that idea. And not only did she say that it should be a national holiday, she actually even published rituals and recipes that we should follow, that we probably all still follow to this day, right? So that we come together as one community, one family, one people to celebrate all at the same time and all in the same way. Wow, that sound like a spiritual home to you? We come together all at the same time on Sunday mornings to celebrate in truth, to remind ourselves how much there is to be grateful for. We break bread. We share of the abundance that we all have. Sarah Josepha Hale. What a gift to Lincoln, and what an amazing man to recognize the wisdom from a woman at that time. But again, it fell apart, and we did not follow Thanksgiving traditionally or consistently in this country until FDR in 1939 made a proclamation about when Thanksgiving should be and how it should be. And once again, we had just been through the Depression, right? And finally he made a proclamation that this is when Thanksgiving should be. We should celebrate it as a national holiday. And still, not everybody would go along. There was fighting about what we should do for Thanksgiving. Go figure. And then Pearl Harbor happened. And in 1941, Congress finally passed a unanimous resolution on Thanksgiving, that it should be a national holiday and we should have it. But again, having to come together because of the division among us, because of the tragedy, because of the war. In the midst of the pain, we give thanks. In the midst of the lack, we celebrate by giving, by feasting, by sharing what we have. Jesus teaches us this in the Gospels when he's faced with the multitudes, the 5,000, and he has 5 loaves and 5 fishes according to the Gospel. What does he do? He gives thanks for it. He blesses it and gives thanks. And more than enough is left over, is even left over after it. When he is heartbroken. And in the scriptures it says he cries at the tomb of his friend Lazarus. Jesus wept, the scripture actually reads. Right? And he gives thanks to God. For I know you hear me always, is what he says. I am heard always. Right? The night before he was betrayed, He shared food. He gave thanks in the midst of knowing that this was not going to end well, that things were not working out. But we give thanks because our little plans aren't always what's in store for the planet. We talked a couple weeks ago about we do things that we may never see the repercussions of. We make imprints on the world, on each other, on people in our lives that we may never know where that ripple ends. But that endless, endless ripple in the pond goes to transform someone down the road. The foster children I've had a chance to touch, the children, grandchildren, other family members in your lives that you've had the opportunity to intersect with. Misa and Jennifer, the people you've sung to that have walked out of the theater changed. Their mood changed, their perspective changed, are all gifts that you will never see the full results of. But they are tangible when you step back far enough and see the truth. Ken Wilber talks about it this way. He says, in order to transcend, in order to elevate our consciousness, to evolve, we must go beyond what we currently know, go beyond our teachings, right? And a lot of us here were raised in a Christian home, raised in a specific religious denomination with rules, with doctrines, with ways of being. And some of us rejected it as we became adults, as we grew up and said, that doesn't have any relevance for me. That doesn't really resonate for me. And we go on to find other things, other ways of being spiritual, of interacting with each other, other teachings. We go afar, study Eastern philosophy or Native American philosophy and spirituality. But what Ken Wilber talks about is that once we transcend, it is equally important to come back and include. To come back and to take the wisdom that we were taught as a child, to take the wisdom that we have gone beyond, and then look at it with our new eyes, and to incorporate the wisdom teachings that are there. The wisdom of Jesus, of the Gospels, of Christianity, are the bedrock on which a lot of unity stands. A lot of the greatest theologians in the world have come out of Christianity. And when we can look at it not as scared of it or angry at it or frustrated by what the quote-unquote church does or what Christian leaders do or what priests do, but for what the teachers were teaching, we get to transcend and include. And Ken Wilber talks about a map of everything, that there is not any separation, there's not any boundary, but it's all just quadrants. So what quadrant are we living in, right? Are we living in the quadrant of only myself? Are we looking at our effects on the world? Are we looking at this is good, everything else is bad? Or are we living in understanding that the world really doesn't operate in black and whites? There are so many shades of gray. In our politics, are we feeding the angry wolf? Or are we feeding the nice one? And when I say that, because the fable says the child asks the wise man which wolf is going to win, his response is the one you feed. So today, in our world, which wolf are you feeding? Are you feeding the wolf of fear and anger and wrong? Or are you feeding the wolf of kindness and love and charity and compassion? The wolf that knows that there is no wrong path to God. The wolf that knows that every path leads every person to their own understanding of their own divinity. that their oneness with God. And that's what we talk about when we say that I am one with God, that I am divine, is that there is no separation from me and my God. And that consciousness, that understanding, doesn't allow us to hold hate in our hearts. Doesn't allow us to cheer for anyone else's downfall, but celebrates everything as a gift. When I was thinking about this week, and I think about it a lot because I get sucked into the angry wolf, right? It's tempting. It's very tempting. And I was thinking about it, and it's like, I'm a San Franciscan latte-drinking liberal. I really gay, and I really am a stereotype in so many ways. And unless I take the effort to communicate and to listen, to have communion with the people who disagree with me, who call me names, that call me unchristian, who call me godly, then I'm missing the equation, and I am in some way feeding the angry wolf. Right? So I've been blessed, truly, truly blessed in my life. I have more than a roof over my head. I have an incredible family. I've learned so much by giving of my abundance to so many people and receiving 10,000 times more. When I started down this path of giving, more and more kept coming to me, so I have to give more. I get to give more. And there comes a time, I feel, in all of our lives when the status quo is no longer adequate. And I think it's that time in this country now, too. This Thanksgiving weekend, as we go into the next season of holiday, the season of light, we have an opportunity to reset. As we go to the next series of elections, the next series of choices that this country makes, we make personal choices every day of the week. And I invite us to follow the words of St. Paul, to go back to Scripture, to go back to the wisdom heritage that so many of us came from. And in all things, to give of our abundance, to give time, to give a helping hand, to give food, to give toys, to give love, to give a prosperity, to give thanks. In all things, to give thanks. I am grateful. I'm grateful that I live in a time where all this is available. I'm grateful for everyone who's come before me in this community, in the world, and then we stand on the shoulders of giants as we figure out how to be in the world. Let's take that to our time of meditation.